building behind me was once a country mansion. It's now run by a charity. There's an event space in there, there's a children's ice cream parlour, there's a cafe, there's offices, there's an art centre. It sits in acres and acres of beautiful parkland, not far from the centre of Liverpool. It even once had its own Neolithic stone circle. And for anyone who likes the Beatles, John Lennon's house is just over there, Strawberry Fields is just over there. But it was all at one point owned by a single family. Nobody needs a house this big, nobody needs a garden as big as a municipal park, but I bet it was nice to have. And the synth we're going to look at today is a pure luxury item. The sound quality is absolutely impeccable, but it is £3,500 for a monosynth, and not everyone can afford that, can they? Not everyone can afford a country mansion, but it's nice to take a holiday in one every now and then. Not everyone can afford a Ferrari, but it's quite nice to take a little peek inside it. So think of this video maybe as a less glamorous episode of Supercar Blondie. But on almost a more serious note, you know, we can't afford Lamborghinis and we can't afford yachts, but £3,500, it's not completely unattainable. It is something that maybe we can save up for a few years and look forward to owning something that's as good as it gets. Our little bit of luxury, our little synthesist bit of heaven. Anyway, this is what it sounds like. And here we have it. It's the Midimini from Studio Electronics, and effectively it's a rack mountable Minimoog with loads of extra goodies. And it's an evolution from their days making the Minimoog, which was created by using genuine Minimoog boards, and they placed them in a rack, added MIDI and an LFO, as well as some other functionality like velocity sensitivity, aftertouch modulation and sync, and they've been playing with Moog circuitry now for over 30 years. So in essence, they've been working with the originals for longer than Moog has in its current form. They even have new old stock potentiometers to get the same detailed response from the envelopes. Let me just read you a couple of sentences from the manual. We needed mil-spec audio tapers because PC mount tapers underperform in critical areas. We hand-wired in PEC container pots.
We fit Donnelly nut spacing grip grids and Splayflex brace columns against Beamfast and Derrick Husk nuts and girdle plate cherries, while plate flex tandems press task apparati of 10 vertipin plated pant traps at every maiden clamp plate packet. Knuckle couplers plate alternating sprams from the T-nut to the SKN to the chin line. Whoa, yeah.
Okay, after all that preamble, let's take a look at what we've got here. What is this luxury item? Well, anyone that's vaguely familiar with a synth will see this, recognize it as a Minimoog style layout. We've got the 3 oscillators, we've got 6 discrete, no PWM on these, don't forget. Mixer section, 2 ADR envelopes down the bottom here, plus we've got the filter on the top. Layout, as I say, same as the Minimoog. We've got the switches for the oscillators, switches for key tracking. And what I really like about this, in the UK, we switch things down to turn them on. In the US, you flick it up to turn it on. And the only time I ever see people flicking switches up is when they're just about to take off, which means this is the closest I'm going to get to being an astronaut. So yeah, all the usual Minimoog functionality. Oscillator 3 is a mod source. The range of the oscillators goes down into LFO territory. Oscillator mod on down here, filter mod on here. But you can see we've got an awful lot of additions in this. For example, we've got this LFO. It's got 9 different waveforms and it's syncable to MIDI. Got linear and exponential glide. And we've got this color section here, which is where loads of the action happens. We can modulate oscillator 2 with envelope 1. We can modulate oscillator 2 only with oscillator 3. And this is the secret sauce of studio electronics, this ring mod, which is absolutely gorgeous and brings in all sorts of different tones that you can't possibly get on a Minimoog. And it's interesting that that really technical paragraph I was reading at the start talks about the different pots, and that some of them are these really expensive ones, cost 10 times as much. When you first get this and you start playing around, very smooth on the cutoff, very smooth on the contour amount, but the resonance, the attack, don't know if you can hear this. Are quite scratchy, and I noticed that at first and thought, what's going on here? Are these these old knackered pots? Turns out they're the really expensive ones. And it gives me hope that the replacement faders I've got on my Juno 60 aren't as rubbish as they feel. But I digress. Back to the additions that we've got on this. You can see along the bottom we've got loads of CV ins and outs and a lot more switches than you get on the Minimoog. There's a CV VCF input and a CV VCA input. Can transpose low, medium and high. Gives you more range across a keyboard. Envelope 2, let's move these leads out of the way. Envelope 2 has got an attenuator and an output, as has the LFO. And we've got VCA dynamics over there and VCF dynamics over here. No priority, envelope 1 inverse, multi-trigger, LFO gate, and envelope 2 as a master, which frees up envelope 1 for the oscillator 2 modulation. Another big upgrade from Minimoog is this down here, and this is oscillator sync. Syncing oscillator 2 to oscillator 1. And plus down here as well, you can see we've got CV main in and oscillator 1, 2 and 3 individual CVs. And that's what I was using for that intro track. But let's start, shall we, by just having a listen to the raw tone. Oh, notice there, pressure from MIDI. But yeah, that tone is instantly recognizable as a Minimoog. Had to stop that filter sweep, stop those copyright claims. Sonically, this thing is impeccable. Let's put a bit of envelope on there. Just got that lovely full rich tone, hasn't it? And just a single oscillator. Smooth as that, isn't it? Beautiful. Let's try another big 3 oscillator Moog style tone. Lovely. We've got this amp drive here. Turn it on. Shooting off into space. And that's just beautiful, isn't it? Let's just hear it on a single oscillator to hear what it's doing. Yeah, it's making it louder, but it's also fattening it up a lot, isn't it? And as it says in the manual, it's the sort of thing you just leave on. So that's the raw tone. If you know your Minimoogs, you recognise that instantly. But let's have a go now playing with some of these CVs along the bottom. In the key step, I've still got the project that was played in the intro track, and we've got the main coming out of this voice here, and then basically a chord coming out of oscillator 2 and 3 with a single gate, obviously. Listen to just oscillator 1. Let's add a bit of this. Bring in the other oscillators. Just proving really that that's all done via CV. And if I play the keyboard now, I'm only playing track 4 on the Arturia, which means tracks 2 and 3 will be playing the same note. I'm not sending any CV to them. Just a nice little effect. Again, something you can't do on the Minimoog, which I'm going to say an awful lot because I'm looking at the bits that you can't do on the Minimoog. If I put MIDI back in now, we saw before we've got aftertouch control. And we can use the modulation like you can on a Minimoog, obviously. Let's turn the modulation on. Let's put on the filter. And again, I think I said earlier, just like on the Minimoog, you can uncouple oscillator 3 from the keyboard, which is great for LFOs, obviously. Also lurking down here, we've got oscillator 2 sync. Let's put it on and let's modulate oscillator 2 with envelope 1. Here we go. And if we flick envelope 2 to master down here, now envelope 2 is controlling the filter and the loudness contour, so we can then do some really nice long sweeps and not affect the actual filter. Lovely. So sticking with this colour section here, let's modulate oscillator 2 with oscillator 3. So tons of stuff in there, and we haven't even touched on the ring mod yet, so I absolutely love this thing. So here we got all 3 oscillators playing. Okay, big 3 oscillator tone. Let's turn all the oscillators off and let's turn the ring mod up. And we can hear that because we're not listening to the oscillators, we're listening to the output of the sum and difference between 2 and 3. So we'll change these. So this is taking us into ARP Odyssey territory, isn't it? It only seems to work on the pulses. In other words, what I mean by that is that if you're on a sawtooth, a shark's tooth or a triangle, it doesn't change the tone. But it does on the squares or the pulses. So there's just so much dirty stuff you can get out of this. Let's have a little play. Straight away. Wow, I wasn't expecting it to happen that quickly. Just so cool, isn't it? Let's try and mess around with it a little bit more. Bringing in the feedback there, obviously. Super nice. Let's just start throwing some bits out, shall we? Let's do FM of the other oscillators with oscillator 3 while we're using the ring mod. Oscillator mod on, turn it off there. Wow. Okay, let's have the ring mod. fat as and dirty as that, isn't it? It's brilliant. Let's have a listen to just oscillator 1 and the ring mod. Nice. So that is oscillator 1 and a bit of ring mod. Let's just turn the effects off so we can hear it cleaner. So with the ring mod and FM and all the rest of it happening, there's just tons and tons of tones in here. This is a really nice idea, this switch down here. Let's just listen to oscillator 1 on its own. As we add resonance, we all know what happens. It really thins out the sound, and what this does is it brings in the triangle from the VCO1 and it just bypasses the filter, so you get a little bit of something meaty through at the bottom end. It's almost like a cheat, isn't it? And there are a couple of other little things we've not touched on down on the bottom right. Let's just remove all these cables so we can see what's happening. We've got envelope 1 invert. Again, something else you're not going to get at your Minimoog. Multi-trig, we know what that does. LFO gate's quite cool. Okay, so I think I've shown a load of tips and tricks and how amazing this sounds and what you can do with it. Here's a little track coming up, and there's 4 parts, all played on this, obviously, all played live, and they just use all those little things I've been doing, all those little ideas I've been doing on each of the 4 parts, all doing different things. Quite cool, I think. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I really do think this is a marvelous instrument, and yes, it is luxury. And as I said in the introduction, you know, it is the sort of luxury we could maybe aim to someday own. Like, we couldn't own a country house, a Lamborghini, a super yacht, or a private jet. To have something nice in your life, it's nice to have little bits like this, centerpieces and stuff. So I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, please think about subscribing, ring the bell, join me over on Patreon, check out my starskycar.com web pages, and if there's any patch banks that you might fancy buying, do so please. It all helps to support the channel, and if the stuff I've not got, please let me know in the comments what you'd like to see there. Great, I will see you next time.